Today, we're chatting about people whose mum, dad, brother or sister dies whilst they're studying. If this is going to upset you, maybe come back another time. Hiya, I'm Georgia and I'm one of the producers on the next episode. I haven't presented much before, but I wanted to tell you guys about this. It's a topic that's really close to me. 6 years ago, I lost my brother Elliot. He died suddenly after a routine operation. I ended up dropping out of uni after Elliot died. It felt like they didn't really know what to do. They didn't have a bereavement policy. I got in contact with almost 300 universities and colleges in England and Wales. 85% of them don't have a policy for students who are dealing with a death in the family.
Listening to broken hearts, pull you down your darkest road. Even though it does get hard, it's good to know you're not alone.
My name's Georgia Coan, and this is the next episode.
My sister was killed through domestic violence. At one point I was told I wasn't allowed to have mitigation circumstances anymore, as I'd been given it too many times.
My brother died at the age of 16. The uni on the whole was really good, laid out all my support options for me. I had meetings with my personal tutor.
I lost both of my brothers to suicide. The first place I went to was the University Support Services. I went to the appointment and I was told that I'd have to wait about 4 weeks for my next one, so I looked elsewhere for support.
Going through school and trying to keep up with my studies whilst having to deal with this massive loss in my life.
What I think I would really appreciated was some sort of support group with a moderator where I could talk to my friends. It's really, really hard to stay involved in the world when you're feeling this grief.
So I thought a good place to start this podcast would be outside Bedfordshire University, which I went to just after my brother died, and I'm standing outside the university now. When I was last here, I was in quite a bad mindset in terms of what I was going through, and I didn't really make a lot of friends at university. I was quite isolated. I didn't really have anyone. But I've actually got my best friend Grace with me here today, who supported me through that time. I was wondering, because I don't really remember a lot of what happened at the time, because I was in my own world really, and obviously wasn't really, well, you know yourself, having lost your dad recently, you're kind of in this blur in terms of like you don't really believe what's happened.
No, and like all days merge into one, so you just remember like flashbacks of certain things rather than just like specific things. Like coming to uni, it's not going to be on the top of your list really, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't remember hardly anything, but I don't know if you remember at the time like what it was like in terms of how I behaved or what my reaction was to it at the time.
I remember you being like quite negative about the whole uni thing. I remember you saying that you had like an assignment due and they'd gone, oh yeah, you know, we can just delay that, you can hand it in whenever, and you remember being like, oh yeah, that's really good of them. And I'm thinking like, well yeah, they should do that, because right now the last thing on your mind is doing uni work.
I think at the time like you were just such a great support in terms of just being there to listen to me, because I feel like, and you probably know this now having been through your own grief, but when you're grieving for someone, you just want someone to listen and not even have the solutions or be able to say...
There is no solution. There is nothing they can say or do that's going to automatically make you feel 10 times better. You just need someone who's going to listen and let you be sad.
I had a conversation with someone, I think it was like the welfare. I'd also had conversations with each of the tutors, but actually a lot of the time it was forgotten, so they forgot that I'd actually been through this bereavement, and so there seemed to be a bit of a lack of communication in terms of like who was talking to who and who knew that I'd been bereaved. And it got to the point where I just wasn't turning up to lectures, but at the same time no one really checks in and says, oh, you haven't turned up to 5 of your lectures, like are you okay? And that's, I think, quite difficult, because you kind of want that personal element to it in terms of like, oh, Georgia, we realised you weren't at the lecture today. But because there's so many people in a lecture hall, they probably don't realise that you're not there. So I think what I would have benefited from anyway is having someone who potentially like a welfare officer or someone who was kind of overseeing what was happening in terms of if I didn't turn up to lectures 5 days in a row, or I hadn't actually turned up at the university for 2 weeks, someone would actually be chasing it up and saying, oh, Georgia, we realised you weren't here. just to have someone checking in and just checking how you are. And then the counselling is really helpful, but when you've only got 6 weeks worth of counselling, a lot of the time that's not necessarily helpful. We're going to hear from my old uni in Luton. They don't have any specific bereavement policy, but for the moment I'm going to chat to 2 people who have lost close family members while studying, just like I did. I want to know how much help they got, and probably more importantly, what help they needed. It's been tricky finding guys who want to talk about this, so it's going to be 2 women. We'll chat to Beth in a bit, but before that, we've got Libby.
I graduated from Cardiff University last year, and I lost my dad 2 years ago to cancer.
Did you approach the university to say that your dad had died?
I applied for extenuating circumstances twice. I applied for it once around Christmas time when my dad was given the news that he was terminal. They got back to me and gave me the extensions for my essays, but nothing for the exams. I was given about a 2-week extension for a few of my essays, but that was the only support I received at the time.
Was that enough for you?
It wasn't, and the worst part was that I obviously had to go back in January and sit my exams at the same time as everybody else. So those exams were at the end of January, which obviously meant I was revising when I should have been spending time with my family.
Obviously, you're going through this loss and trying to deal with that. Was that a stressful time for you?
I was 20, and I think at the time I thought I was dealing with it really well, but looking back, I wasn't dealing with it well at all. I had mental health problems as a result of it, and it was quite a struggle. I think the problem is I didn't do anything to cope. I had counselling when my dad was ill. When my dad passed away, I wasn't receiving any support, so I wasn't really looking after myself very well. But I never had a physical conversation with a staff member about it. Everything was conducted over email, and I had little support from my actual tutors. Most of it was through the administration team. I wasn't asked if I wanted to take a break. I wasn't given the option to do resits.
I chatted to Cardiff Uni, and they said that although they don't have a bereavement policy, a range of adjustments are available under their extenuating circumstances policy.
Because it's been grouped with mental health, they feel as if they are dealing with it because it's a priority, but because obviously it's not being dealt with as a separate issue, that's where the problem lies.
So the last person we're going to speak to is Beth Rowland, and she was 20 when she lost her mum. She's 24 now, and she was at Nottingham University at the time. Hello! Just saying how nice it is around here.
Yeah, we've only lived here about 2 weeks, so we're still getting used to everything. It was really hard going back into my 3rd year. Very quickly found it very overwhelming, and it all felt so pointless to me. I was thinking there's so much more to life than just grades and exams and essays, and I just wanted to scream at everyone I met, like, don't you know that, you should be with your family, you should be, living your life, because life doesn't last forever, and all these sort of feelings, and I so nearly dropped out. I did access a counsellor at uni, and I got 6 free sessions, but she wasn't bereavement specific. I sort of immediately thought, this probably isn't going to be as good as I was hoping it would be, because has she even lost anyone? Does she even know the pain? Instantly, I wasn't prepared to open up to her as much. But I remember being quite disappointed to find out I'd only got 6 sessions. Because they were weekly, that was 6 weeks, and 6 weeks passes so quickly.
What could the universities include in a bereavement policy to make it better for bereaved students?
I would have liked to have seen a specific bereavement counsellor as part of the team at university. And I do think that as universities are charging upwards of £9,000 a year, it has to be their responsibility to be supporting you as a whole person, not just in your degree, not just in your academic life, but in your personal life and with what's going on with you. And I think that universities will find that their graduates perform better and have a better time at uni if they offer more support. Thanks so much, guys. Lovely to meet you.
Oh, thank you so much as well. I really appreciate it. And I talked to Nottingham Uni, the one that Beth went to, and they do actually have a bereavement policy now. They say that their counsellors support students who experience bereavement. So I'm heading into Bedfordshire Uni right now. I'm going to talk to them about my story and see if things have changed since I was here 6 years ago.
So if we go back 6 years, that would have been 2013.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, things have changed quite a lot since then.
Do you have any specific policies on bereavement at Bedfordshire University?
We don't have a specific policy that will deal with bereavement, but we have policies that deal with how to support students. You don't need a policy specifically bereavement. I think you need a policy that says this is what we do as an institution to support students generally as an overarching thing, rather than because then you would have a policy for every category. And I think the issue is spot the vulnerabilities, speak to your students, hear your students and refer when you need to.
That's quite interesting to me because some of the people that I've spoken to, they see mental health as being quite different to bereavement. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering whether if it was all under one branch, would there be a situation where potentially that starts to mix things up in terms of bereaved students are treated the same as maybe someone with depression or anxiety?
No. So for example, the University of Bedfordshire, we have the counselling service. We also have a mental health team, very separate. There's not one, size fits all.
So fair play to Bedfordshire University for the changes that they've made. Thanks Rookie Heritage for talking to me, I really appreciate it. Thinking back on my time at university after Elliot died, I think I really would have benefited from a bereavement counsellor, and a policy potentially could have helped those lecturers and staff members know how to support me during that time. Although Bedfordshire have made some changes, like many other unis and colleges, they don't have any specific support for students who have lost a family member. Even government, as well as the organisations who represent universities and colleges in the country, say that there should be appropriate support for students who lose someone in their family. But as we now know, this basically means that bereavement support is included in other kinds of welfare and help for students. Let's see what happens on the next episode of this one. Thanks so much to everyone who's helped out with today's episode, and a special thanks to the guys who have chatted to us about losing a close family member. It's not an easy thing to talk about. All the music on today's episode came from BBC Music Introducing. Our final track is by Alfie Templeman. He's from Bedford, and this is his latest tune, Stop Thinking About Me.
Well, I guess I should stay here for a little while. Well, I want you to be clear what you want from me, what I cannot say. What you want from me, what I cannot say. Well, I guess I get a little bit cold in the winter, growing a little old. My mind is fixed on you. What am I to do? I'll think it through. Stop.